When it comes to entertainment, Simon's a man of the people. He's got the common touch.
He understands mass market, mass audience, better than anyone I know.
What he's very good at is seeing something that other people can't see.
But his childhood was anything but common.
He's always been surrounded by fame and money and wealth.
Despite all that, when he was young, he was a bit of a waster.
He was not mad about school. He was not a good scholar. He didn't particularly try, and that was the usual thing, he could have tried harder.
He was dreadful at school. I mean, he was forever in detention. I can't remember ever coming home with a good report.
What he needed was some stiff upper lip, cold showers at dawn, boys together private school education, and gain the required skills in order to achieve his dream of greatness. So Simon's parents sent him to Dover College. He made quite an impression on his old housemaster.
My first impressions of Simon were that he was a miserable little devil.
And what sins did this devil commit?
Simon refused to do anything that he didn't want to do himself, and he was quite successful at that.
What did he want to do?
Simon was punished for smoking cigarettes, which were against the college laws. He was punished by being suspended for drinking in a local pub.
But the biggest sin of all was to come.
His great sin really was to be found out, which is the 11th commandment of all schoolboys.
In 1975, aged 16, Simon was chucked out of Dover College. At least he got some qualifications that would one day help him run his global empire.
I know he got less O-levels than me, and I only got 3. So I think he got 2 O-levels. Then he got sent to college for a year afterwards to retake his O-levels, which he did. And then I applied to the same college to retake mine a year later. And they very nearly didn't let me go to that college because of his bad behaviour the year before.
Simon was too cool for school. He had no useful qualifications, skills or talent. So it had to be showbiz. Luckily, his family lived in Elstree, home to the glitz and glamour of the British film industry.
Our next door neighbour was head of Warner Brothers Films, Jerry Blacknell, and he was our neighbour, and through him we used to meet people, and we used to go to parties next door and vice versa, and everyone there, from Roger Moore, so very big film stars, everyone was there.
Simon was the Fresh Prince of Elstree. A quiet word from Dad and hey presto, a job in the movies, fitting with a lad of Simon's abilities.
Basically, he was the lowest form of life. He was what they call a runner, which means literally run around for everybody else on the set. And I believe he's paid the princely sum of £15 a week.
Elstree was where Star Wars was filmed, but it's hard to feel the force on a £15 salary.
Unfortunately for Simon, I believe he got sacked after a few weeks.
Time to have another word with his dad, who just happened to be a director at EMI, and hey presto, a job in the music industry. Would it be something glamorous like promoter, producer, talent spotter? Nope.
And it really was in the post room, which meant that you made tea, you did the post, and you did whatever errands were necessary.
No limos yet, but at least pushing a trolley full of post backwards and forwards between offices gave Simon chance to plot his next move up the greasy showbiz pole. He had his foot in the door of the music industry, but 15 months later, he took it out again.
And he said, all I do is take the post round every day, Mother, but that's what I'm going to do to start with. He stuck it for 15 months. That's where his father stepped in and said, right, I'll get him a job.
Cowell Sr. had run out of connections in the entertainment world. Simon's next move would quite literally be much less rock and roll. Hang on, 10 grand for a house? How old is this archive? Mind you, the rate we're going, it might not be long.
And he went into the property business and got a job in a very staid West End commercial firm where they treated him like an absolute idiot and was just told to make the tea for the first week.
During that time, I have never, ever seen my son so unhappy in the whole of his life. He used to come home at night and say, I don't fit in, I don't like it, Mother, I shall never like it. And my answer was, well, at least give it 6 months.
Stuck in a proper job, it looked like Simon had given up on his dreams of music industry success. But then he got a very important phone call. Fate had spoken, but first it had to go through his mother.
The guy from EMI rang and said, I'm quite interested in him doing this interview. Would he like to do it? And I said, well, he has got another job. I didn't explain to him what it was. But he could come if he wants to. And I kept thinking, do I disrupt the whole thing and say, when he comes home, you've got an interview, or shall I keep quiet?
At that moment, the whole future of music was in the balance. Would Judy tell him about the job?
I said, if you had a chance, Simon, to go back in the music business, what would you do? And I think his words were, I'd give my right arm, Mother. And I said, I don't think you have to go quite as bad as that. But you have got an interview, and he whooped with joy.
Good decision, Julie. So far, Simon had been a boyhood troublemaker, school expellee, car wrecker and bored estate agent. But in 1980, he had his big chance.
I interviewed him, or more accurate to say he interviewed me. He seemed to know exactly what he wanted, and he seemed, an ideal candidate, so I took him on.
Simon was back on course for victory. Ellis Rich had worked with Simon at EMI, and when he set up a new company in 1982, there was only one person on his headhunt list. For Simon, it was the start of a glamorous new future at E&S Records.
So we set our own music publishing company in the converted gents' toilets of a car park. It was basically a set of cubicles without the walls. We actually had to position the secretary's desk so the legs avoided the soil pipes that were coming up.
From his desk in a car park toilet, he launched his assault on the charts, and for the first and only time, he was the performer. Aged 23, this is Simon's first time on TV, and you'll be shocked at his appearance. He's the one on the right.
Well, I decided I ought to make a single, actually. My motto in life is truth, justice and the canine way.
The act was Wonder Dog, and yes, that is Simon Cowell, on his hands and knees in a dog costume.
We made up all these names like his friend Alsatian. I mean, the whole thing was a list of puns.
Who's your dislikes and your influences in the music trade?
Influences are probably the Corgis, Bow Wow Wow, the Canine League, the Beagles, and dislikes, Cat Stevens. He's barking up the wrong tree.
The only pun he missed there was that the single was a bona fide hit. It got to number 31, but that meant a lot in those days, and Simon had discovered that the public liked his ideas, however naff.
It's not something that I don't think either Simon or I are proud of, but never mind, we sold a lot.
After a couple of years, Simon took his dog costume back to the fancy dress shop, left E&S and moved on to bigger things at a new label, Fanfare. He began looking for fresh acts. If a dog could sell records, perhaps a real person might sell more.
When I first met Simon, he just signed Sonita, and he was pretty quick at knowing if this is a hit or forget it. And he still is today. He can kind of look at things and make a pretty quick judgment whether it's going to be a hit or not.
The music was catchy, the video imaginative, so of course it was a worldwide smash. Hold on, haven't we seen you somewhere before?
It's very difficult to say no to Simon purely because he does it in such a charming way. And he always makes you feel he's asking you to do it because he's the only person in the world who could do it. So you kind of go, yeah, all right.
The video for follow-up single Toy Boy featured the first known sighting of that classic Cowell V-neck t-shirt, high trousers combo. And just look at the size of that V! But in the video, size wasn't everything, and Sonita took a 13-year-old boy on a date. It was the 80s. Success meant acts were keen to work with Simon. Pop's second most famous ginger scouser, after Cilla Black, Sonia, loved working with him.